ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ 2021 ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਤੇ।
ਸ਼ੇਰ-ਏ-ਪੰਜਾਬ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਡਨ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਸੁਖ ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸੁਖ ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ, ਪਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਉਹ ਜੁੜ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਤਾਰੁਫ ਕਰਾ ਦਿਆਂ। ਸਰੀ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਜੋ ਕੈਨੇਡੀ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਨੇ, ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲੀਡਰ, ਪਿਛਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਇਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੂੰ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਨੇ, ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲੀਡਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮਿਲੀ। ਪਰ ਐਤਕੀ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੋਮੈਂਟਮ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੀ ਕੈਂਪੇਨਿੰਗ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਔਰ PPC ਨੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਛ ਦਿਨ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਲਿੰਗ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਨਾਓ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਐਟ ਨੰਬਰ 4। ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਲੌਕ ਬੁੱਕ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਉੱਪਰ ਆ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਔਰ ਕੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਕੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ, ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਜੋ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਫॉर ਜॉइनिंग ਅਸ। ਇਟਸ ਨਾਈਸ। ਯਾ, ਸੋ ਜੋ, ਫਸਟ ਆਫ ਆਲ I would like to know what is your party's agenda in these elections?
Absolutely. So our party's agenda, we basically base all of our policies around four basic principles, and that is the upholding freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect for all Canadians. So our policies are actually very well rounded. They cover everything from immigration to gun control, economy, and all the rest, taking those four things in consideration.
So when you're saying freedom, do you think we are not in a free society?
I think currently our freedoms are being eroded. Daily, we can see just over the past year and a half an erosion of our freedom of religion to be able to practice how we see fit. Currently, in my church, we have a mask mandate, and so it's not a far stretch if they can ban me for not wearing a mask to church. Then it's not a very far stretch to see them ban us for not having a vaccine.
But as far as the experts are concerned, they are giving their expertise on, you know, in the pandemic, that it's a contagious disease, it's contagious virus. So why there is, why you're not listening to the experts?
There's experts on both sides, and unfortunately our side tends to be the one that is censored off the internet. You will find, if you look, there are experts of both degrees, and they keep saying trust the science. But the only science that I'm aware of is science that you can actually question and then show your work to prove.
Okay, it's fine that there should be a voice from your side as well. But as far as the pandemic recovery is concerned, or the handling of pandemic is concerned, how would you rate the current government's practices?
Well, I see it, as I said, an erosion of our fundamental freedoms, both the erosion of our freedom of speech to be able to talk about complex issues. We are willing to give that up in this moment of emergency, which will not be the only emergency that Canada faces in its life. And if we forego our rights now, then how do we ever think through complex issues in the future and be able to discuss them?
But it's not an emergency only for the Canada, it's for the world as well. It's a pandemic. It's
yes.
a global concern, and people are dying. There are thousands and thousands of people are dying. So how do you rate this government's handling of this pandemic?
I would love to see the government continue to support those that are most vulnerable. It tends to be the elderly and those with comorbidities. However, there's a lot of promises that are coming from all candidates right now, saying that they're going to do this, or they're going to build new housing, or they're going to take care of the expense of housing and life. And all those come with hooks within them. They all cost money, and they all have to come from an economy that is booming and forthright and able to produce. And that is something that the People's Party of Canada wants to do, is actually get government out of the way so that people that aren't seriously affected by this pandemic can continue to do what they do best and produce.
And Joe, I would like to know how much you know about the issues, the real issues of your constituency.
Well, I'm not a true politician, to be completely honest. I saw the writing on the wall and was looking for leadership within this federal race. When I didn't see any leadership in our area, I thought, well, if not me, then who? So I took the opportunity to run with the People's Party of Canada to stand up for the individual rights of Canadians, because everyone's life is absolutely complex. It would be crazy for me to think that I know how to live your life best. We could sit here for days and days and weeks, and I still wouldn't understand all the idiosyncrasies of what is important to you and how you would choose to live your life. And so I find it to be insulting that the federal government is actually imposing their will on the individuals when everyone's issues are so complex, and where they choose their risk to reward, or whether or not they feel like they need to provide for their family to be able to continue to push on. That's a choice that only they can make.
But do you think these problems just rose after the formation of PPC? Or were there these kind of similar problems were in the Canada?
No, that's a great question. And to be completely honest, these problems have continually been cyclical. There's no real consequences for bad policy within Canada. It seems it's a revolving door between the Liberals, the Conservatives, and now to a certain degree the NDP as well. But if you don't punish bad policy by actually voting for what you believe in, then all you do is just reinforce bad policy over and over again.
So as far as your constituency, once again, if we just
Yes.
focus to your constituency.
Thank you.
What other challenges do you think the constituents are facing,
Well,
other than the freedom?
Of course. Well, it's a very diverse constituency. We have the industrial units and the heavy industry that's down close to the water. We have the business districts. We have the schools and the university. The number one employer, it seems, that within Surrey seems to be the federal government through healthcare and that sort of provincial care. And so there's a wide variety of people and constituents that are there. And again, to self-manage each individual aspect of all of them, you have to give the power back to the people and say, how best do you feel that you should be able to run your industry or your healthcare profession? There are doctors that are on both sides, that some do not believe in these vaccine mandates or the vaccine passports, but they are threatened with delicensing if they speak up out of turn from Health Canada.
So when you are doing your campaign, when you are approaching to your constituents,
Yes.
what are your big strengths? How you approach them? What things you want to bring into their notice?
Absolutely. I just want to ask them, basically, are you happy with the direction that Canada is going in at this moment? And often they say no, that they feel underrepresented. They feel like their concerns are going by the wayside. You continually have people talk about housing crisis, affordable housing being an issue as well, the cost of education, the cost of healthcare, and you have parties placate them by giving money to different groups without actually encompassing all of Canadians. And that's something that we, as the People's Party of Canada, actually want to unify Canadians under the Canadian flag. And so, all these promises that are being made, they do have those hooks. We are $1.1 trillion in debt as a federal government, and if you include the provincial debt as well and all the rest, then we're over $2 trillion. So that's a lot of money, and each day $450 million is added to our federal debt. That is something that we as people within society, it will either come at us as a tax to pay back later, or a tax on our savings in the form of inflation, and a tax on our children and grandchildren as well.
And what if you become a member of parliament? What are going to be your first three priorities?
The first three priorities is to absolutely enshrine that charter rights and freedoms for Canadians. Again, going back to the idea of freedom, responsibility, respect, and fairness.
So let's talk about respect and
Yes.
responsibilities. We have seen people are carrying the placard of PPC,
Yes.
and then they are shouting on the Prime Minister. Do you think that's the right way to protest?
Well, I do think that it's okay to express yourself and to be able to risk saying hurtful things, in the sense that what I might find hurtful might be different than what you find hurtful, and what anyone else might
Absolutely,
find hurtful.
that's why we call you, to
Yes.
have your voice.
Yes, but in terms of any physical violence or call for violence, absolutely not. That's where I draw the line. But how do you think through complex problems unless you risk being offensive?
Gary Mason, today he wrote an opinion in the Globe and Mail, and he said that Maxime Bernier's disgraceful campaign. So when this kind of titles you saw on mainstream media, how do you feel that
Well,
you are attached to that party?
I feel fine. I've been able to talk to and follow Maxime Bernier for quite some time. I know my own character and my convictions within myself, and I find a lot of the things that are written about the People's Party of Canada to be absolutely false, and to be basically a smear campaign. When they smear us with those insults, they basically don't have to answer our questions and take our questions for valid questions, I suppose. So it's an easy way to dismiss us and move on. So we are here to say we won't be dismissed, that we will stand up for Canadians.
So do you think that media is not playing a fair part?
Absolutely, I do. I think the media is being unfair in this. When you look at, for instance, the CBC gets $1 billion from the federal taxpayers every year to be able to keep them afloat. And also, just before this election was announced, $600 million was given away by Justin Trudeau to the media conglomerates to be able to help them through this pandemic. The other thing to consider as well is as the economy has taken a downturn in the past year and a half, that obviously also the advertising revenue for media companies has declined. And lo and behold, the federal government has been able to step in with their, to a certain degree, COVID announcements and pick up a lot of that slack to keep those media companies afloat. So they are basically the arm, the propaganda arm of the federal government at this point.
Fine, you single out CBC in this, but the Star says the far right and white, I know that there are other ethnicities, those who joined your party, and
Absolutely.
they are as well contesting in this election. But the Star is saying the far right and white nationalist groups are, they are pushing their followers to support Maxime Bernier's party, People's Party. Do you think that's going to be good for our community if there's just only one ideology following your party and rest others are not feeling comfortable?
Absolutely. I don't think that would be a good thing. Now, first and foremost, I would say that we don't like white nationalists. We don't like white supremacists. And there's no room for that in our party. Again, that's a dismissive thing that people will throw on us to make it sound like we are a racist party, which we absolutely are not, which I'm sure you'll see from the other interviewees that you'll see from the People's Party.
Maxime Bernier is agreeing to this point?
Pardon me?
Maxime Bernier?
Absolutely.
Is he agreeing to you at this point?
Yes, of course. We don't like white supremacists. Now, and to be completely honest, we don't like racism of any kind. To discredit somebody based on their unchangeable characteristics is something that we as Canadians have done a great number and great deal to fight throughout our years. I'm 39 years old. To be honest, the fact now that we are getting painted into a corner where if you don't even acknowledge a racist tendency within you, then you're considered racist. And if you do acknowledge a racist tendency within you, then you're racist. So race has never been an issue.
Thoughts on this?
Yeah,
I can understand that.
So unfortunately, the ideology, the single ideology that you talk about, you will find that these other parties talk about diversity, and diversity is our strength over and over again. But it's diversity of looks, it's not diversity of thought in any way within the Green Party, within the NDP Party, within the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. If you think differently than they do, then you're out of the club.
So in case if you don't succeed in this election, are you going to serve to the constituents of your state or your riding?
Absolutely. This has kind of lit a fire underneath me, and I'm excited to pursue and see where all this goes. Hopefully we do win the September 20th, and I am elected MP. However, if that's not in the cards, then I'm not too sure where I'll go next. School boards or local or whatever it may be.
See, we haven't seen Maxime Bernier's, there was no choice for, I should say, for the listeners or for the Canadians to listen to your party's agenda in the debate,
right.
in the national debate. So what's your party's agenda as far as the economic recovery is concerned?
Absolutely. So you'll hear all kinds of details from us, actually, instead of just placations on what we promise. First and foremost, our party actually wants to balance the budget within 2 years. The closest is the Conservatives, which say 10 years. The Liberals don't have a plan, and the NDP, I don't think, has mentioned anything. Not only balance the budget in 2 years, we want to make just 2 tax brackets. Anything under 100,000 and above 15,000 is taxed at 15%. Anything above 100,000 is taxed at 25%. We also want to tackle capital gains tax and bring that down to 0. We find that the businesses, they are not, rather than government taxing business and then choosing where to invest that on behalf of those businesses, we think that the money should actually stay in the pockets of Canadians as well as businesses to be able to choose where they see fit to be able to reinvest or support. And the innovation and the productivity that will be spurred on by those lower taxes will greatly outpace any income that we would have missed out by keeping those taxes where they are.
So Joe, my last question.
Yes.
Why should people vote for you if you want to address in the closing? What message would you like to deliver to your constituents?
Okay, absolutely. To be completely honest, I never thought that I would be in this ring to have to fight for our freedoms and the freedoms of our future, for our children and ourselves. We find ourselves in a very interesting time, and one that is more important than ever for Canada and for the future of Canada. We may disagree on a number of different things. We may agree on a number of different things. But unless we actually protect our rights and freedoms to be able to discuss openly all these complex issues, that we'll, if we don't enshrine our charter rights and freedoms, then we will never be able to breach that in the future. So this election, September 20th, I do hope that you vote for Joe Kennedy and vote for your freedoms and your future to be able to make the choices that are important to you in your life, and what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to go without. Thank you very much.
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਜੋ ਕੈਨੇਡੀ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਰੀ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ। ਔਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਖ ਧਾਲੀਵਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਗੇ, ਸਾਡੀ ਨਿਊਟਨ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਜੋ, ਰੀਅਲੀ ਐਪਰੀਸ਼ੀਏਟ ਯੂਰ ਟਾਈਮ ਐਂਡ ਵਿਸ਼ ਯੂ ਆਲ ਦ ਵੈਰੀ ਬੈਸਟ।
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.